Welcome to the Better Workday podcast, hosted by Niamh Moynihan. Each week, Niamh shares tips, tricks, and insights to help you have a better workday. In today's work environment, we're often encouraged to be our authentic selves. But Niamh, what does it even mean to be authentic at work? Is it possible to be authentic and still have boundaries?
Hello. I hope you are well and welcome to this week's episode of the Better Workday podcast. A few weeks ago, myself and Trisha were sitting down talking about what episodes we'd cover in the weeks ahead, and she asked me about being authentic at work. And this has been a stickler of a subject for me in the past because I really like to keep big parts of my life private. I know I'm definitely not the only one, but I also recognize that you need to be able to connect with people at work. And so over the years, I tried and failed at being authentic at work before eventually finding my groove and finding what worked for me. So I don't think it's anything that we're born to do naturally. I do think it's a skill in terms of being an authentic communicator at work. And if it's a skill, it's something that you can learn and you can develop and you can build more confidence in. Now, I might be about 14 years too late talking about this. I know that it was a really hot topic way back in 2012 and the years after that. And that's because there was a lot of distrust in leaders and there was really low employee engagement. But I still think it's important today, and mainly because I think we're going to be working in hybrid models for the long term, and they require a lot of trust and engagement peer to peer. So it's no longer just something for leaders. I think it's at all levels. So whether or not you are communicating with your team members, other departments, your manager, it doesn't matter where you are in an organization, what your role is. I think it's going to be really, really important for us to be able to build that trust and to get that engagement peer to peer level and, from teams if we're going to go forward. And so with that in mind, I said I tackled the topic today. I definitely won't cover everything. I probably won't get it all right, or you mightn't agree with everything I say. But like all things, I just really want to start the conversation. And before we go any further, I just want to mention that, as always, my two dogs are in the room with me, Loki and Freya. There is works going on outside. You probably won't hear it by the time I edit this. But if you're watching this podcast instead of listening, and if you see Loki pop his head up a few times during the recording, he's just being nosy. But they love being in the room for this. I'm telling you, it's like they know when podcast recording is happening because they could be watching telly all day or just relaxing. And the minute I turn on those ring lights, whatever, get the mic ready, and up the stairs they come. So, it wouldn't be the same without them. So there we go. The dogs are with us once again. So now that you know there's a risk that one of the dogs will photobomb this podcast, let's get on to the topic at hand, which is being authentic at work. And I want to break it down into a couple of different areas. And by the end of it, I want you to feel that you can better communicate authentically and that you can use that communication skill to build those relationships and to get more done with less stress and less hassle. So the first is, people would say you need to be true to yourself. And always I would ask then, which self? Because I've got multiple identities. I don't know about you. So I'm a mother, I'm a business owner, I'm a dog owner and a cat owner. So is that conflicting? Some people would say it is. I'm a runner a couple of days a week. I am a friend. Have I said I'm a daughter? I'm a daughter. Once upon a time, I was a singer-songwriter. So I'm someone who loves music. I've got all these different identities. I'm a wannabe cook, all these different things. And which part of those do we need to bring into the workplace? And I would argue that you don't have to bring your whole self to work in order to be your authentic self. But I think sometimes bringing elements of, those pieces of you are really good because it helps people to get to know you and to understand you as well, so that if you ever need help or support, they have a better idea of who you are and how they could potentially help you. And you won't get it right the first time. I just suggest bringing in elements of those other parts of your life as you see fit and as feels comfortable to you. So for a long time, I wouldn't have, felt the need to tell anybody about huge areas or huge parts of my personal life. And I'm definitely not going to share them on a podcast. But what I will say is, over the years, I have, found that I can bring in information about my passions, my hobbies, the fact that I've got kids and all that kind of stuff, quite lightly into conversations and into my interactions with people. And that sits well with me and it resonates well with the other person. And that's what it's really all about. And then the other part of, I suppose being true to yourself is what version of yourself, because we're always evolving and we're always transforming. The Neve that you're listening to today isn't the same Neve that I was a few years ago. And God, I hope, I continue to evolve and change. And so it can kind of feel like we're being a little bit inconsistent as we evolve and as we change in our styles and the way that we communicate and work over the months and over the years. And I think it's important for you to be okay with that, or to know that that's okay. We all know that when we start learning new skills or start going outside our comfort zone, the behaviors or the things we do often feel a bit like unnatural, a little bit kind of what's the word? A little bit stiff, that kind of way. Like you're not being true to yourself, a little bit fake. But that's how we learn. And then eventually it becomes natural to us. It becomes part of who we are. And so, like, I wouldn't want your idea of being authentic to be an excuse for you staying in your comfort zone, because in order to grow, you kind of have to keep on pushing outside that. So it's okay to be inconsistent as you grow. That's not fake. That is you growing. And really, I think that having more of a flexible sense of your authentic self is better than having that rigid sense of self. And to know the difference, I think that self-awareness is absolutely key on this. So I talk about my ego and my deep knowing quite a lot when I work with people one-to-one or small groups, not so much now on the bigger groups because we wouldn't have the time to get into it. But when I talk about my ego and my deep knowing, I say that like my ego is all motivated by external factors like success and being able to go on holidays and, having a really kind of a big following on LinkedIn, for example, or having a very successful podcast and all those things, right? And sometimes, I suppose, especially when I'm growing or if I'm evolving or if I'm trying to find the best way to communicate authentically, I find that the ego can lead me astray and lead me to sometimes overshare, to be quite honest, to try and impress others or to be what I think other people want me to be. And that's never good because it doesn't sit well and it's unsustainable. And so I go to what I call my deep knowing, which is, I think some people who are religious call it the small, still voice inside. So basically, that's when you just hang out with yourself for a little while, go for a walk, sit down, have a cup of tea or whatever it is that you have, a hot chocolate if you're really like me, and just close your eyes and say, what do you really want to say? How do you want to show up? What do you want to share? And I think as long as you can practice that self awareness and keep coming back to it and asking your deep self, were you happy with how much you shared? Could you have shared more? Did you want to share a little bit less? You will, I suppose, tweak those dials of how much you share over time, and you will find what feels good for you. Now, moving on to the next part of being authentic, and this one I find interesting is being really transparent and sharing your thoughts, your honest thoughts and feelings. And I think this is really, really risky. And I've done it and it has backfired big time. So, for example, my first role in managing a team, I went into a big team and I basically said, I don't know what I'm doing, so I need your help. Now, that was not a good plan because that's correct. I did feel like I didn't know what I was doing and I did need their help. But of course, like I lost all credibility there because the team wanted somebody who was confident and who were going to guide them and help them to, get their work done and to be successful. And here was I coming in going, look, I don't know what I'm doing and I need a load of your help. Really what I should have said, and this is kind of 12 years ago now or more, so will forgive me now at this stage. What I should have said is, I'm new to the team, and of course, there's going to be some things that I don't know, and I can't wait for you guys to help me to understand the team and understand the business. And this is my first time in this sector, or maybe acknowledging something new about this for me, but I'm confident that we're going to be successful, and I really can't wait to get stuck in. And just changing it from all the fear and all the worry into an honest statement about the fact that I don't know everything, but confidence that we will be good. And that's the balance. Like that's the balance about knowing why you're communicating and who you're communicating to. Because honestly, being an authentic communicator at work is less about you just dumping all your personal thoughts and feelings onto everybody who you work with, and more about trying to understand what are you trying to achieve as a team, as a partnership, whatever you're doing. Where are you at? Where do you think they're at? And what can you say to help ensure that the other person or the rest of the team know what support they can give you, and how you can make sure that they know that you're there for them as well. And it's that two-way street thing. So it's definitely not a one-way monologue about your thoughts, feelings, fears and all that, and more about you displaying emotions and feelings which resonate with the other person or people and help them to come along a journey with you. And as I said, that's not just for leaders, that is all levels. The other part of being utterly transparent, or like really being true to yourself is, well, when we work with people who don't share our cultural norms. So, I've worked with people from all over the world, and we often have different expectations about how we should behave at work and in after work social activities and all those things. So if I was always to be my fully authentic true self, I'm sure there's a lot of people who I would have disrespected or wouldn't have been able to get along with because I didn't meet them halfway or didn't even consider the fact that how I communicate or how I behave isn't the same as what they're used to. So there's that piece of it as well. Now, just to jump in on a side note here, I spent the last 45 seconds getting tongue-tied about the next sentence. It's so funny when you're podcasting. You think you've got it all figured out, and then the craziest sentence throws you. So like in last week's episode, I couldn't for the life of me remember the word data center. I was like, data places, data, where data lives, where they keep the data storage place. Like I could not think of the word data center. Even when I recorded, I couldn't think of it. It wasn't until like that evening when I was eating my dinner, I was like, it's a data center. So I just had one of those moments there. Anyway, I get back on track. So the next thing I want to talk about in terms of being authentic is empathy and what that looks like at work. And I came across this phrase called tough empathy. But I think the word tough could be wrong. Maybe they use it for leadership. But anyway, it's balancing respect for the person who you're talking to with the task at hand. And I think that is brilliant for empathy at work, right? Because we all know we're there to do a job, but we also want to make sure that we're working together and we're considerate of other people. So I think that's a really nice way of approaching conversations when it comes to any type of your work. So maybe you're trying to get a project over the line and people have tasks that are overdue. We'll say people have tasks that are late. And, no empathy is, just saying the tasks are late, they have to be done, I don't accept any excuses. I don't want any explanation. I just want the task to be done. Whereas balanced empathy, and I'm going to use that term instead of tough empathy because I just don't really like that word tough, would say something like, okay, the work is overdue and we need to make sure that we get things back on track. What's been going on? Or is there anything that I can help you with? Is there anything that I can support you with to help resolve this, to help make this happen? And not only asking those questions, but actually listening to the response and working together to find a solution to the problem. So it's not one person's fault in this case. In this case, it's a problem to be solved. There are tasks that are overdue. And you need to understand where the other person's at and what's going on with them in order to know how you can help them get back on track. And also they need to know why you care so much, what's at risk, and how you're feeling so that they can meet you where you're at as well. I think that balance of listening to your colleagues and trying to really support them while also considering the fact that the work needs to be done is a good way of building those relationships. Finally, I just think that when people care about something, they're more likely to communicate authentically. I'm sure you agree with this. So if there's something that you are passionate about, whether it's football or gardening or cooking, when you start talking about it, you can't help but be authentic, right? You can't help but, really go all in there and share what you want to share and explain how you feel and, try to get all the others on the same bus as you. It just really comes naturally. And I think that in work, it's important to remember why you care about your role or what elements of your role matter to you. So for some people, it could be the product that you're creating or the service that you're delivering. For other people, it could be the culture of the company that you're working in and the fact that you want to protect that. For other people, it could just be the team that you're in and the personalities there that you really care about. For others, it could be the fact that you're developing in this role and that really matters to you. And I do think that it's good for us every now and again to tap into that and to ask ourselves, what is it that we like about our jobs? Where do we find the joy in work? And remembering that then allows you to reconnect back to your purpose, and then you're more likely to communicate authentically in the work settings. So I think we've covered plenty today. I hope it's enough to get the conversation started for you. In the spirit of being authentic, my kids have just got home, so I'm going to wrap this podcast up super quick. Until next time though, stay well and have a better workday.
Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. The Better Workday podcast is about helping you have a better workday, so we'd love to hear your thoughts and questions. You can find our social media details as well as any references from this episode in the show notes.